This week, I was reminded of something very powerful. That is, there are many times in our lives that we have discovered techniques, tools, and strategies that have produced fascinating results, far beyond what we could possibly have imagined before we tested them. No matter how excited we were, once we got in, tested out the tool, the technology, the strategy, the framework, whatever it is, and the results were so exponentially beyond our wildest imagination. And that has happened this week for me with two tools that I want to share with you. The first one are my Bose QuietComfort noise canceling headphones. The other one is a lifetime subscription that I purchased many years ago to a company called Focus at Will. You can find that at focusatwill.com. Now, today, I don't know if they have the lifetime subscriptions anymore. They might have monthly subscriptions, but here's what I will say. There is something going on with the audio tracks from Focus on Will that simply puts me into a flow state where I might set it for a 90-minute timed session. And I click play. And as soon as I click play, I hear ding, the timer goes off. And I'm like, what the heck? And within that short little brief, apparently like 7-second window of time, 90 minutes has passed. But the miracle is that during that 7-second window that I was consciously aware of, I just accomplished more than I would in a normal 8-hour day. This is not hyperbole. I am not exaggerating at all. I'm not sure if you are familiar with the difference between a concept called Chronos time and Kairos time. Chronos is what we measure time by with a clock, and it ticks by at a standard objective 1 second at a time. Kairos time is where you get so caught up in the moment that you could live a lifetime within a few short hours, or you could live a few short hours within a moment. I will let you, if you're interested in learning more, look up, do some research on Chronos time versus Kairos time. But I will try to, off the top of my head, speak to you about what I recall that made me decide to make a lifetime purchase for Focus at Will. By the way, I'm not trying to sell you a subscription to Focus at Will. There are lots of ambient soundtracks that you could test the waters of that may do for you what Focus at Will does for me. But I will try to explain to you what I recall. Focus at Will was the first service that I was aware of that had these ambient soundtracks that were designed scientifically. They took soundtracks that were created by musical artists with these ambient sounds. Well, I listen to ambient. I listen to a channel called Atmosphere. And there are 3 levels of atmosphere. There's ease, flow, and motion. I choose the one in the middle called flow, and I listen to Atmosphere. There are lots of different channels and lots of different types of music tracks, all shapes, all sizes for people, but Atmosphere is my jam. Flow is the level of intensity for Atmosphere. And what they do, these tracks existed outside of Focus at Will, although at this point they may have commissioned certain artists to create tracks for Focus at Will. I don't know that to be true. I'm just, again, speaking off the top of my head. But when I first read about it, what they were talking about is that they would go in and edit tracks to remove parts of music that would take you out of hypnotic state or hypnotic rhythm. The idea is that this music kind of hypnotizes your, I can't remember, the part of your brain that has you consistently looking over your shoulder, am I in danger? Is there potential danger? And all this other stuff. And it's that part of the brain that's always aware of your environment. Again, it's been years since I researched this, but the best I can tell you is there's a part of the brain that is hyper aware of your environment. However, that part of the brain with certain frequencies of music and the certain rhythm of music, if that music is edited and or created intentionally with such a specific rhythm, it can put that part of your brain into a trance state, or it will hypnotize it. It will completely settle it down. Now, whether or not after reading that description of what their service is about, why they created it, and how it works and why it works, whether or not it's been a placebo or not, I don't know. But all I can tell you is that it is miraculous what I can achieve when I put Focus at Will music on. So, one of the things that I have decided to do lately is do time blocks in my ideal work week. This is something that I have done in seasons, and I'm currently in a season where it's necessary for me to begin putting some pretty rigid time blocks into my calendar. Not so much that I need to adhere to some disciplined, I got to get myself to take action on certain things. My issue is that I actually need to start limiting so many of the things that I'm passionate about in my business to certain blocks of time. I need to cut myself off. I have the tendency to work in a flow state on something and then kind of just forget about everything else. So I put guardrails on the amount of time that I allow myself to work on certain tasks. Now, over the past 2 weeks, ever since I got back from my incredibly intense 3 weeks of travel, I have been working within these focused blocks of time, but without the aid of Focus at Will, without the aid of my noise canceling headphones. I'll come back to the headphones in just a moment. The two combined together are a marriage made in heaven for me personally. Although I will tell you that I can put Focus at Will on in the background and just have it playing over speakers, over the laptop speakers, whatever the case may be, over my Sonos speakers here in the studio. But I also work from home, and I live in a home where there's people who are active much of the day. So noise canceling headphones comes into play for me. Now, before I pulled out my Focus at Will subscription or dusted off the web page, if you will, I was struggling. I would sit down for a 2-hour block of time to sit down and do what I call my invitation engine. This is a block of time where I connect with individuals that I have met in person at conferences, I've met through social media engagement, or people that I have been introduced to through referrals, whatever the case may be, and discerning, is there anybody that's in my field of influence that has something going on in their world where the type of coaching that I do could help them get clarity, get unstuck, find momentum, and maybe just provide them a space where they could have a thinking partner. Those kind of things. I'm looking for signal in all of the conversations. Is there anything that stands out where I might be able to help? When there is, I will then make an invitation. And those invitations could be a number of different things. But I use something called the Prosperous Coach Method for creating clients. And I have this 2-hour block of time where this is what I do. Every morning, 2 hours every day, Monday through Friday. Now, what I found over the last 2 weeks, actually for the first 2.5 weeks after my travel, I found that I would get into a situation where I'm like, oh, you know what? Based upon how I am tracking these 116 people that I connected with at Social Media Marketing World, it would be nice if my CRM had different layers for this follow-up system. It would also be nice if it had these labels available to me so that I could quickly glance and see, oh, it'd be nice to have that. And the next thing I know, I am 1 hour and 35 minutes into my invitation engine window of time, and I've not made any connections. I've not made any invitations. I'm not anything. Now, what I will tell you is that I did some incredibly important things to optimize my CRM, but guess what was not blocked on my calendar for that period of time? CRM system optimization. CRM system optimization may indirectly at some point help me become more efficient and overall aid in my ability to continue to create environments for me to build relationships that lead to serving others and making proposals and thereby generating income. But it's actually connecting with people, finding out what's going on in their world, hearing signal through the noise, and once I hear the signal, make an invitation, get into engagement, serving, and then potentially asking them, do you think that you would like to experience more of this in a paid ongoing coaching relationship? If I'm not doing those things, the business does not generate income. So what I found was after coming back from Social Media Marketing World, I realized that my systems needed a little bit of adjustment, but the reality was that the systems didn't need adjustment to connect with people. The systems didn't need adjustment and optimization to find signal in all of the conversations. I didn't need those optimizations to make invitations. I didn't need those optimizations to coach powerfully and to make proposals. Those things were not essential. Now, they were fun. They felt rewarding in the moment. But when I had 3 or 4 days straight go by where an hour and a half of my 2-hour window, several days in a row, left me with only 30 minutes of invitations and connections, I'm like, something's off here. Now, in episode 832 of this podcast, The Cliff Ravenscraft Show, I shared that I am using a very new daily logging practice, a daily journaling practice, a daily reflection practice where I use my Plod Note Pro. I record many check-ins throughout the day, and then that's transcribed. And the very next morning, I will do a full reflection on everything that happened the day before. And then as time goes on with my ChatGPT, I'm able to feed it in and say, listen, I want you to find blind spots. I want you to point out patterns of behavior that are not in alignment with my desired and stated outcomes and goals and values. And so it's very clear that it's like, Cliff, did you really need to do that? You could have done this. This is what I would encourage you to do. And then I would sit down and I would and then it occurred to me, you know what? I bet you if I were to get my noise canceling headphones out, and if I were to get my Focus at Will opened up in a browser, set a 30-minute, 60-minute, or 90-minute timer, and put it myself into a flow state and say the only thing I'm allowed to do is this activity. If I start that timed session and then go, I bet you I would be able to accomplish what I set out to do in this time-blocked window. And it was amazing. I have been using Focus at Will and my noise canceling headphones now for the last 4 days. And it reminds me of exactly why I paid for that lifetime subscription to this software so many years ago. Now, this is a tool that I used to use hours a day, every day, for months. And when I did, I was in this flow state consistently throughout the week, getting massive things done that I would normally put off, or I would get distracted. I would go in all these other directions. And I don't even know how I got out of the habit of using it. I don't know how that rhythm broke. But all I know is that Focus at Will and my noise canceling headphones have not been a combination that I've used in my business until the last several days. And it had been more than 2 or 3 years. And it reminds me that this is not the only set of tools or strategies or frameworks that have created such phenomenal results, positive and forward momentum for myself personally, professionally, spiritually, mentally, emotionally, all the stuff. But there are just some times when we lose sight of what's worked for us in the past. Oftentimes when I sit down with someone who is really struggling to find a method for getting something done that they've been putting off and procrastinating, and they're like, it just seems like every time I sit down to do it, I just can't get myself to stay focused on it. And what I like to do is I like to ask a question. Is there ever been a thing in your life where you had a similar situation, but where you did find a method, a strategy, a tool, a technique that shifted everything for you? Now, not everyone has an answer to that, but I've asked this question, let's just say 20, 30 times. And I would say all but 3 or 5 have had an answer to that. Now, it was related to a completely different topic, a completely different area of life. But when I asked them to explain it to me, then all of a sudden, as they're explaining it, they're like, oh, I could do this. I could pull this out and apply it over here. And next thing I know, they're telling me the technique, the tool, the strategy, the framework that's going to be applied to get the results that they know they're going to get. And they already have confidence by the end of their explanation that it's going to work because they feel how it's worked in the past, and they recognize in the moment as they're saying it out loud that that is transferable to what they're facing now. And I'm like, wow, on a scale of 1 to 10, how likely are you to apply that consistently over the next 7 days? And if there are a 7 out of 10, I would ask, what's the gap? And we would work on that. But by the end of the conversation, they're a 10 out of 10, and then they go and do it. And I check in with them 2 weeks later. How's life been? Oh my gosh, you won't believe this. I'm like, I think I will, but tell me anyway. This is what I'm talking about. This isn't an episode about Focus at Will. This is not an episode about Bose QuietComfort noise canceling headphones, although they are very powerful. And if you haven't played around with some noise canceling headphones and some ambient background music with a timed session, whether it's Focus at Will or any of the other hundreds of other apps and or playlists on Spotify and Apple Music these days, maybe give that a shot. But here's my question for you. Are there any tools, techniques, systems, or frameworks that work for you in accomplishing things that you want to accomplish in your personal or professional life, where the results were consistent, predictable, reliable, and you loved it? And as you're thinking about it right now, you're like, oh my gosh, how did I forget about that? And now, as you think about it, are you willing to give it a try again? Hey, I would love to hear from you. If you are inspired to try out Focus at Will, noise canceling headphones, or any other alternative to those items, and or any other frameworks, techniques, tools, or strategies that have helped you accomplish more than seems humanly possible, and it's only because you listened to episode number 833 of the Cliff Ravenscraft Show that you consciously became aware of it today again, and that you're committed to now implement it again. And you're like, man, I'm glad I listened to this episode. I'm glad Cliff asked that question. And wow, am I excited about that. Will you let me know? My email address is cliff@cliffravenscraft.com. Hey, I want to let you know that my mastermind groups are up and running. I have 2 different groups. One's for early stage entrepreneurs. If you're not making at least $10,000 a month every single month in your business, whether you have a day job and or you're full-time self-employed and you're looking to get over that 10K a month in your online business, that is the early stage entrepreneurial group for the Next Level Mastermind. If you happen to consistently be crushing it in your business and you wish you had other people who understood what life was like at your level, somebody who could help you navigate some of the decisions, a group of people who understand the kind of decisions that you're facing, a group of people who understand what it takes to show up and be visible, to stay consistent, to continue to create momentum, somebody who understands your world, especially if you're now at the age where things like aging parents is starting to come into the window and kids off to college, and there's all sorts of thoughts and ideas and commitments and requirements that are weighing on you outside of the decisions and the actions and everything that you're facing in the business. And it sometimes feels like there's nobody you can turn to who understands life at the level of the business owner. Well, we have a group for that. That is the Established Entrepreneurs group for the Next Level Mastermind. If you would like to have a conversation about joining me in either of these 2 curated, facilitated environments that I'm a part of, 90 minutes a week, every week out of the year, devoted to helping you stay focused on the things that matter most to you and to help you build that momentum and hold you accountable to the things that you know you are committed to doing. Email me, cliff@cliffravenscraft.com with mastermind in the subject line. I'd love to hear from you. Until next time, I encourage you to take everything you do to the next level.